All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the 2018 Iowa College AmeriCorps program, host site, serve site supervisor orientation. We're going to go over some of the key and important aspects of this program. We'll talk a little bit about everything that is really important about the program that we want you to be aware of, some of the changes, and just kind of some of the more bigger picture things. We do have more training scheduled for today, tomorrow, and thereon. You're always encouraged to ask questions throughout. You can put them into the chat box. You can unmute yourself and feel free to ask. We will have time at the end to answer questions. You can also contact us afterwards if you have additional questions. But one of the things that I just wanted to pose to everybody who's here is just to ask you, just so we're aware of who's all in the room, who you are, where you're from, and how are your ICAP members going to support your civic action plan. And I know, Andy, over there at Morningside, you're in the process of starting the process of thinking about how you can develop a civic action plan. So that one might not be as applicable to you, but feel free to answer it if you feel like you can. Otherwise, just talk about maybe the things you're really excited about with things you're really excited about with your AmeriCorps program this year. So, Andy or Amanda, if you want to chime in.
Sure. All right. Well, I'm Amanda Martin from Drake University. This is a good question. Renee is super versed in our civic action plan, and this reminds me that I should review it a little bit.
Oh, I didn't mean to make this feel like homework. I'm sorry.
I think about our institution's continuous improvement plan, and one of the things is strengthening and deepening our relationships with the community and community partners, and of course our civic action plan is a part of that, and certainly having 10 ICAP members working pretty intensely with 10 different nonprofits, I saw last year really help strengthen relationships and deepen relationships within the community. And we have some returning organizations and some new ones. So I just have no doubt that they will continue to do that. And I know that this is part of kind of the revised performance measure plan, or how we're going to assess the program a little bit. So I will put this on my homework list.
All right. Well, thanks, Amanda.
Sure.
All right. Andy, are you there? We can't hear you. I don't know if you're muted on your end, but we will. We can't hear you. If you want to enter something in the chat, you're more than welcome to, but otherwise we're just gonna kind of continue on with the presentation. So, oh, he says he's here. All right, awesome. So just so you're aware of who's here from Iowa Campus Compact, I'm Justin Ellis. I'm the assistant director here. You can see my contact information there on the screen. My responsibilities and maybe reasons why you would want to contact me are things related to grant management, financial management of this program, as well as compliance. So if you have questions about, can we do something, should we be doing something, is this appropriate or allowable, those sorts of things, I'm here to help with. We also have Ryan Rogers in the room, and I'll have him introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Ryan Rogers, program coordinator over the program, so dealing with more of the day-to-day operations for the ICAP program, so member management, timesheet monitoring, data collection, and then member trainings is kind of the main things and my main priorities with this program.
And we do have another person who will be joining our team for this grant. That person is yet to be determined, but we will send out their name and contact information once we get to that point. So.
Sorry to interrupt. Is my audio working now?
It is.
It is.
All right.
So this is Andy. I'm over at Morningside. Sorry about the trouble there. Yeah, as you acknowledged, this is all new to me. This training is my very first experience. I'm new to my role at Morningside, so I'm the director of campus ministry and community service. So I'm working both on the chaplaincy side, the ministry side, but also on the service side. So I'll be supervising our ICAP students this year, but I'm very new, so I hope to be learning a lot today.
Great, awesome. We're excited to have you. Any questions that you might have, feel free to ask throughout, and then obviously Ryan is a great resource, and he's going to be kind of your day-to-day contact. So
terrific, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
So yeah, not a problem. So just today, what we're going to be talking about, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the background of this program, where it comes from, a little bit about AmeriCorps. I'm going to mention some of the updates from 2017. We'll talk about host site requirements, supervisor requirements, member requirements, onboarding, and exiting members from the program, as well as some program deadlines, reminders towards the end. So just to get started on the background section, what is AmeriCorps? Who is AmeriCorps? Where does this all come from? So AmeriCorps is part of the Corporation for National Community Service. This is one of their grant programs. They have several grant programs within AmeriCorps. We fall under what's called AmeriCorps State and National. How this works is that the Iowa Commission on Volunteer Service, which is a state agency located here in Des Moines, they receive funding from the federal government to distribute out to nonprofit organizations to have AmeriCorps volunteer programs across the state. And we're just one of those grantees. So that's how the kind of funding trail works within that. There's also other AmeriCorps programs, AmeriCorps Vista. Iowa Campus Compact is an AmeriCorps Vista program that's focused on working with nonprofits across the state of Iowa. That one's focused exclusively on two things: capacity building within agencies, as well as ensuring that, as well as alleviating poverty within local communities. So you have a full-time AmeriCorps Vista member that's helping to build the capacity of a nonprofit to alleviate poverty at some point. That one also has a summer Vista component to it, which is just summer positions. There's also AmeriCorps NCCC, and that's a little bit closer to what the Peace Corps is kind of like, except a more domestic version of that. The Corporation for National Community Service also has programs called Senior Corps, and there's programs of foster grandparents, senior companions, RSVP, which is seniors serving as foster grandparents, seniors serving other seniors, and seniors serving in the RSVP program. RSVP program is more like seniors serving their community, similar to AmeriCorps, although the benefits are different. And then lastly, there's the Volunteer Generation Fund, which is funding that states can use pretty broadly to get more folks interested in volunteering. So Iowa Campus Compact uses that for our Service Learning Institute program. So if you're at a campus and you're interested in connecting faculty with nonprofits to develop service learning courses, we can help out with that. Our primary funder, so this is the state agency Volunteer Iowa. Again, they're located in Des Moines, Iowa, and they are the state agency that awards AmeriCorps funds to nonprofits, in this case, Iowa Campus Compact. It's important to know who they are because they may reach out to you. They do like to do focus groups with site supervisors to understand your experience within the program. They do like to do site visits periodically with our program, sometimes with us, sometimes without us. They also do like to reach out to members on occasion to do member surveys. So it's important that you know that they're part of this big piece, this big puzzle, and ultimately we all have a relationship with them in some way. One kind of critical aspect of AmeriCorps, and kind of a question that we tend to answer a lot is what separates an AmeriCorps position from just a regular volunteer position that you might have through your campus or in your community. One thing that's really critical to our AmeriCorps positions and any AmeriCorps position is that they're really project-based. Those duties are project-based. It's not kind of necessarily an ongoing position, although the position might come up year after year after year, but the duties are really project-based. There's a definite start and end to what the member is supposed to be doing. There are minimum requirements. So in this case, we have for full-time members 1,700 hours they have to complete, as well as for our part-time members, we have the 300-hour requirement. Members do receive financial benefits. So our full-time members, they receive a living allowance, they receive health insurance, as well as that education award. Our part-time members receive that education award. I'll talk about those things here in a little bit in more detail. And then finally, the duties are tied to federal statute. And we have a whole section on prohibited activities, and that's really what that's related to. So how does this all play within what is our program? What is the Iowa College AmeriCorps program? Well, here is a table of what our theory of change is very loosely about. So you can see here, if we go from right to left, what we're trying to accomplish with this program. So we've identified the problem within the state of Iowa is that we feel that nonprofits cannot meet the increased demand for their direct services within their communities. And we believe that there are two possible answers to the solution. One is to have campus-based positions, and another is to have community-based positions. I think it's great to have both of you on the line because Drake is, your positions are entirely community-based positions, and Morningside kind of does have a mix. I'd say across the program, most of our positions are campus-based, at least during the academic year, and certainly our full-time positions are campus-based. But with these two kind of ways that we operate this program, we're trying to achieve really the same thing, and you can see that in the long-term outcome. We're trying to, one, improve the capacity of organizations so that way they can provide more or better direct services to their community, and/or we're trying to help beneficiaries to receive more or better direct services by improving the capacity of the nonprofit or maybe your campus. So where the beneficiary one kind of comes into play is more along the lines of that's kind of the step after we improve the capacity of the organization, is that ultimately it is about the beneficiaries and improving their lives in some way. So how we get there on the campus-based side is more so on the either developing programs to support the community, or else leveraging student volunteers to participate in volunteer projects on or off campus. Those are the two most common. Certainly there are other ways that it does occur, but those are the most common that we see. And what we're hoping to accomplish with this program on the output side of things is we want to have the number of campuses completing the civic action plan. So that's kind of our community assessment. So your campus that goes through that process, and that helps to identify the ways that you feel that you can most and best strategically align your resources to support the community. And our goal is to have 12 campuses go through that process. Now, to date, I think we have 11 campuses that have already gone through that process. So we just need one more to go through it, and then we've reached that mark. On the outcome side of things, all we're doing is we're monitoring the progress towards achieving the goals that are identified in that civic action plan. And we want to monitor the progress of at least 8, preferably all 12. Actually, this year we have 15 campuses that we're working with. So 15 is what would be great is if we get there. So something along those lines. But again, that's just monitoring the progress. For the community-based positions, the activities, the things that members are really doing are on the lines of community engagement. In this case, with the study that we have this aligned to, this is really more on the side of communication and outreach and those sorts of things. Much of what we call community engagement in higher ed, but we're trying to be true to the grant as well as true to the study that this is based off of. So that's why it's defined in that way. Program development, again, just developing programs, improving programs that might be happening at the nonprofit. Organizational development, any sort of like behind the scenes sort of things that the nonprofit may need assistance with. And then finally, volunteer coordination. The outputs that we're trying to achieve with this program are, one, just counting the number of organizations that are receiving support. So we set the goal of 25. It may be a little bit above that, might be a little bit below that, but we set the goal of 25. And then outcomes, and we're expecting this to change this year. But just to know, this is the general direction that we're going, is that the number of organizations that we're working with are reporting that they're becoming more effective as a result of our AmeriCorps members service. Now, I say that we're changing it because right now we're working with a researcher to do kind of a needs assessment of community-based organizations and how they partner with higher ed. And we're going to use the results of that to really determine what that outcome should be. And what we're understanding right now is that we should be focusing more along the sides of having great partnerships being established. And that's really the thing that we should be focusing on and making sure that that's happening, and that will ultimately and hopefully lead to that long-term outcome. So if the partnership is great, then the members can be more effective and the partnership can flourish, and we will hopefully improve the capacity of that organization is kind of the thinking there. So that's what it is right now, but just know that that wording will likely change. So speaking of updates, these are some of the changes from 2017. On the member side, members' citizenship is verified before members can start. And really, this is really important because, one, we're going to have essentially pre-service orientation. So before anybody can actually start in the program, we want to sit down with them, fill out all their paperwork, walk them through the application process or the enrollment process. And then CNCS needs to verify their citizenship before we can even start them in the program. The second we have position description templates available. Ryan's going to talk about that in our next training after this about position descriptions. Third one here, performance measure changes. There is no pre-survey on the side of what we're asking nonprofits to do. So that's one element in there. We'll talk about more of those in the performance measure training that's later on today. Fourth thing here, day of service funding is available, and that's available to all ICAP host sites during the academic year. So everybody has up to $2,000 that they can spend on some sort of day of service activity or activities. It doesn't have to be tied to a national day of service event, but it should be something that really brings your ICAP members together, your campus together, your community together in some way. Next one is we have a summer reading corps as an option for students. So we have more summer service opportunities for students across the state of Iowa. We'll be launching that later this fall. We do have a new staff position. We don't have a person selected for that yet, but we are in the final stages of the interview process, so we will have someone soon. Next one is that we want to work with your campus to have some sort of press release or public announcement of the award, your projects, your student successes, or project outcomes, really something that highlights the great things that are going on. And we really want to find a way to support that happening more effectively for this year and also going into the future. So we don't want this to be something that is seen as a requirement, but we do want to be able to leverage the power of our voice as well as your voice to really celebrate the fact that we have students that are doing quite remarkable things out in the community. And in some cases as a really coordinated project, and in some cases as individual students just doing astounding things. And then lastly, the Civic Action Academy is a requirement for all AmeriCorps members serving in this program. So attending that Civic Action Academy is a requirement. We do provide travel support as well as registration support for that through this grant. So just know that that's something that we're expecting from everybody serving in this program, assuming that they're started by the date that starts. So now just to kind of switch gears, we're going to talk about some of the host site obligations. This is again just kind of at the broad level, so that way everyone is aware of what's in that agreement that we put out there. So the first one is that member orientation should be led by Iowa Campus Compact staff. Ryan is here, he's available. If you haven't already scheduled a time for him to come to campus to lead member orientations, you should do that as soon as possible. He's going to talk more about that later today. The second one is that we expect you to assist Iowa Campus Compact in providing a community partner orientation. So that might mean that we do one over webinar. That might mean that we come in, meet with your nonprofits individually. That might mean that they watch a video recording of a orientation similar to this one, something like that. And we just expect you to help us out in that process, communicate it to them so that way we can ensure that everyone understands the most basic obligations of this program. The next one are, we expect host sites to release members from service for things like Day of Service, the Civic Action Academy, and the Midwest Campus Compact Conference. Now, this doesn't mean that members have to and are obligated to go to these things, but what we don't want is that we don't want a member who's really excited to go to the Civic Action Academy to be told that they can't go because they have to serve at their nonprofit site that day. Now, if there is something that's very significant and compelling and a good reason why they need to be there, like maybe they have a big event, communicate that with us and we'll talk through those situations as they arise. But we really don't want to have any unnecessary barriers up for students to take advantage of these great opportunities. And this includes full-time members as well. placement sites are public organizations, not solely focused on advocacy and lobbying. So if you're placing an AmeriCorps member out in the community, they're not serving on campus, they're serving at an organization in your backyard, we expect that those be a public organization, so that could be a government agency, state or local, or even federal. It could also be, it could be a nonprofit, it could be a church or something like that. But those organizations, they cannot be solely focused on advocacy or lobbying, and also they can't be for profit. Again, trying to get that point across. So you can't place a member at a business. And then lastly, member performance issues are communicated to ICAP's compact in a timely manner. Someone isn't showing up, if someone isn't completing timesheets, if someone is behaving in a way that they shouldn't be. We do have specifics about that in the member agreement. We just need to know about those as quickly as possible, so that way we can be notified, especially if there's additional action that might need to be taken, and more importantly, if it results in the member exiting the program. The last thing that we want to have is you or someone else from your program comes to us and says, you know, this member that I have in the program failed to do these 5 things. I want them gone today. So just know that. With that said, in the host site obligations, there's a whole litany of the prohibited activities, and these are the federal statutes that are especially important that are tied to AmeriCorps member service. I'm not going to go through them each one by one, but I am going to call out the ones that are in kind of that yellowish, goldish color, because we feel that these are the ones that are most common and the ones that are most important to CNCF in many ways. So engaging in any partisan political activities, a member cannot do that as part of their AmeriCorps experience. Engaging in religious instruction or conducting worship service. Certainly we can have members that are serving at churches or other sorts of religious agencies, but part of their service cannot be to, let's say, lead a Bible study class or other sort of religious proselytization. So they can do that on their own time. They can't do that as an AmeriCorps member. Another part of the prohibited activities is providing a direct benefit to a business organized for profit. So you can't provide support to businesses. Basically, a member can't be placed at a business. This might include things like a family farm. So be aware of that, especially, you know, it might be a small, very small operation in your community. Just know that those, unfortunately, we can't benefit, we can't support those organizations with this program. An organization engaged in religious activities, again, just the religious thing. Next one here is conducting a voter registration drive, and that does include non-partisan voter registration drives, so we can't have AmeriCorps members on or off campus as AmeriCorps members helping out with voter registration drive in any capacity. So just know that that's something that is, especially coming up with the big midterm elections, that's something that just cannot happen with this program. So next thing to mention here is, so AmeriCorps members cannot engage in those activities directly or indirectly. So this also applies to the volunteers that they may be recruiting. So you can't have an AmeriCorps member recruiting student volunteers to go out and register others to vote. Unfortunately, that's just something that just can't happen. When do these restrictions apply? So any work or service hours that are funded by the AmeriCorps grant, so basically anything that ends up on any of the members' timesheets, that doesn't, then the prohibited activities apply. If you are a host site supervisor providing your time as a source of match for this grant, then that time as well applies to those prohibited activities. Anything outside of that, that doesn't involve any AmeriCorps or anything like that, then obviously you can, you know, go out and register folks to vote all you want. Next one applies to personnel listed on the approved AmeriCorps program grant budget. It's basically, you know, anyone that's receiving some sort of financial benefit from this program or is again providing their time on our budget, more or less. The prohibited activities applies to them. So that applies to all of our AmeriCorps members because they're hopefully going to receive that education award. It applies to all of our staff here, Ryan and Justin, and then eventually that third person. And this also applies to community volunteers recruited and managed by the AmeriCorps members, just to to make that clear. So they're not on the budget, but the statute restricts that that we can't recruit again a volunteer to do something that's prohibited. So when don't they apply? So anytime that an AmeriCorps member has that is not on their timesheets, they're doing it on their own, that counts. So, and also if you're a site supervisor who isn't turning in timesheets, obviously any of your time can count towards any, you know, if you're expected to lead a student voter registration drive on campus, you can certainly do that. And then lastly, you know, like just to kind of reinforce this idea, individuals are free to exercise their right as citizens when not charging staff or AmeriCorps time to the grant. But there's that word of caution in here. We really want to make sure that we don't have the appearance that we are AmeriCorps members while we're perhaps out doing these things. So if you have a student who's really excited about voter registration, make sure that they take off that AmeriCorps shirt that we're going to provide them that says "We Serve Iowa" and AmeriCorps all over it before they go out and start asking other students to sign up to vote. What are the consequences of violating the prohibited activities? For the AmeriCorps member, there's a potential loss of position, loss of their Ed Award. For Iowa Campus Compact, we could face disallowed costs and repayment of those costs, including education awards, as well as the loss of the grant overall. For you at the host site, this could mean a repayment of costs. We do have an article in the host site agreement that says that if you do this willingly and knowingly and we don't know about it, and we have to pay back costs, then we're going to be working with you to also repay those costs. For the field of national and community service, loss of public trust and funding, these things tend to make the news, so just be aware of that. And then for our communities, really loss of opportunities for your students as well as for your community partners, and then loss of help from volunteers. So in the area of monitoring, how we kind of identify these things as if they're happening. So if you think a member is doing prohibited activities, just contact us. And this is our course of action. So what we're going to do is we're going to first determine that the activities are actually prohibited. You know, we want to make sure that we're not going to go in and assume that they are. We're going to make sure that it actually is prohibited. And then what we're going to do is, if necessary, first we want to identify the service hours that were unallowable and remove those from the timesheet. So our goal is really to keep somebody in the program and to continue to support the community as much as possible. And then after that, we want to work with the member to develop a plan to ensure that the member is able to complete their term of service. Now, it may end up that as a result of our findings or our funders' findings that the member is unable to complete their term of service. They're serving 4 months, and we discovered this 3 months in, and we had to take off, almost all of their service hours, and then they have to exit the program without their education award. That might be a situation that we unfortunately have to come across. I'll say thankfully though, in my history of the program, I've been here for 5 years, we've never had to do that, so I'm hopeful that we continue that success. If you're really excited and want to learn more, you can follow this link. I think that this is probably enough though, but if you're really excited, you can certainly learn more. In the area of supervisor obligations, these are some of the critical ones. We do have to collect timesheets for every single AmeriCorps member so we can verify that they're serving those minimum number of hours. And those are approved within 4 days of submission. So timesheets are due submitted by?
They're submitted always on a Saturday. Yep. They're always due on a Monday.
So the member submits them to you on a Monday, and then you need to get them to us by Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, and we have those specific dates for you as well. We'll talk about that later in tomorrow's training on timesheets. Reports are submitted by the established deadlines. So I have the deadlines later on in this presentation. They're also in the host site agreement. We do ask that the supervisor helps us in completing the enrollment forms, and that you also help us in completing the FBI fingerprint cards. Now, we ask that you help within that. Kind of our goal is that we take over that process, and you don't have to help us with that. But if we can't get out there for some reason, we ask that you help out with the process. Is what it comes down to. And then obviously communicate with Volunteer Iowa as needed. They have their online focus groups. That you can participate in and share your thoughts on the programs in AmeriCorps or overall. In the area of reporting, and this is what we expect of the site supervisor and the site. We have quarterly performance reports. Those are numeric, mostly. I think there might be 1 or 2 narrative questions in there, but those are mostly just numbers. So hopefully pretty easy to pull together. There's also the Civic Action Plan report. I will say in the agreement, I know it does say there's a specific deadline of June 28th or something like that. That has changed, and if you want to work with us to amend your agreement, I'm more than happy to do that. Otherwise, we're going to now it sounds like we're going to have kind of an open period to complete that report. We're looking at April through October. So if you have a civic action plan, this is when we would ask you to just update us on how things are going. If you don't have one, then we wouldn't expect you to complete this report. Kind of we know when you're done is when you submit that report to National Campus Compact and to us. So for full-time members, they do have a monthly narrative report that they submit that just talks a lot about, asks them about personal and professional development. Part-time members, we do have a midterm narrative report. So about the time that they get to that 120, 150 hour mark, that's when we're going to reach out to them and ask them to just tell us how things are going. We used that last year and we found it successful in terms of identifying if there are members who maybe are less interested in their positions, or maybe they're running into challenges or things like that. We can try to address those early on as possible. There are member evaluations. So if you have a full-time member, we do need a midterm evaluation. Those will be due around January or so, and then one at the end of their term of service. For part-time members, we just need one at their end of term of service. And I will very much so underscore the member evaluations. These are very important because essentially we can't exit someone and have them earn their education award unless we have an evaluation from you, the supervisor, on file. Unfortunately, that's just one of those things that CNCS is very adamant about. So we absolutely need one of those for every single AmeriCorps member, even if they don't exit the program with their education award. Honestly, we need that too. So AmeriCorps considers them not fully exited from the program, and then for whatever reason. So just know that that's a thing. And then lastly, financial documentation. So if you're requesting financial documentation and maybe you're requesting funds back from us for that day of service funding or professional development or things like that, basically, send it in as it's received. And then if you are a site supervisor who's submitting timesheets because you're using your time as a source of in-kind match, then those are due by the 5th of each month. And we process those, we try to get them on that next month's claim. So we try to collect all the funding and everything like that as quickly as we possibly can. I want to talk a little bit about benefits. So I'll first talk about host site benefits, and we'll talk about member benefits. So the things that you can expect from us on the side of administration, we will certainly help you with delivering part-time member orientations. Ryan will come out and deliver orientations to you. We can also expect the opportunity for we will deliver trainings to your members, and we have a calendar of that. But also, we can come out to your campus and deliver trainings to your members there locally. Happy to do that as well. We do monitoring of member timesheets for compliance concerns. We do review of member position descriptions. So that way those are entirely compliant. That was a big issue last year, although we do have systems in place to make that a lot easier this year. See, Amanda has a question. Have training requirements changed at all for the year or remaining the same? Those are remaining the same. Although I will say that, they're a requirement. It's not a hard and fast requirement, I'll say that. I think that's kind of how to become an AmeriCorps. So we're really focused more on having quality training than just trying to check all the boxes at this point. So other support we can help you with are if you need any sort of consultation, or maybe your members need consultation, especially around the area of community engagement, we're happy to help as an organization broadly. Any sort of outreach that we can help you with. And then obviously recruitment support, more so on the side of those full-time members or our summer positions. And then lastly, financial benefits. We have day of service funding. Certainly there's the professional development funding that you can provide to your members. You're welcome to use that. And then the Iowa Civic Action Academy travel support for ICAP members. Basically how that works this year, unlike last year, is that we have a big pool of funds, and if you need travel support, you need to request it in advance of the Civic Action Academy, and then we'll review and approve it, and we will award funding until basically that pot of money is gone. So just know that that's available. We budgeted, I think, $50 per member, so it's a pretty sizable amount. So hopefully that'll cover everybody's needs. But if not, just let us know. But again, I think one thing is that $50 per member cap does not exist for everyone. That's just how much money that we asked for the grant. So if you need more than $50 per members to travel from where you are to Des Moines, so that way they can attend that opportunity, that's perfectly fine. To talk about members specifically, part-time members, they receive obviously that professional development. They receive that education award of about $1,200. They can put their loans on forbearance if they so choose. They do have the ability to request the professional development funding. That's something that we hope that the campus kind of provides to the member, and then we reimburse the campus directly. And then obviously the support to attend the Civic Action Academy. For our full-time members, they do receive a living stipend paid out bi-monthly from Iowa Western Community College, our fiscal host, totaling $15,000 over their 11 calendar months. If someone exits early from the program, and even if they earn the education award, we're not going to pay out the rest of that $15,000, so they kind of get what they get. So just know that that's a thing as well. We do provide full health insurance coverage through Iowa Western Community College. It's an optional thing members can take advantage of. There's a $1,000 professional development budget, additional professional development and networking opportunities. We try to do 4 of those a year, although I think we're going to be at 5 this year if you count the Midwest Conference. Obviously, our members get the education award, which is almost $6,000, pretty sizable amount of money. They can also put their loans up for forbearance. And then I think this is probably one of the best things that this program offers for full-time members is childcare benefits. And there used to be a cap on this where if you're in AmeriCorps, you could only earn so much per month or something like that, but they've got rid of that as of 2 years ago. So a really great opportunity if you're thinking about having a full-time member in the future and you want to work with folks who might have kids. It's such a great thing. We've had members who served in this program who did have kids who quite honestly wouldn't have served in this program if it wasn't for that benefit. So I think it's fantastic. And then lastly, again, the support to go to the Civic Action Academy. Let's see, this is relationship with Volunteer Iowa, just kind of reminding of you of that, is that they might reach out to you and your members. I want to talk about program evaluation a little bit. So the 2 big areas of program evaluation that we're focusing on this year is, one is we want to disseminate a capacity survey. We want to send this to community partner sites who have had ICAP members for at least 2 consecutive program years. So talking about 18-19 as well as last year, 17-18. We're planning on administering the survey unless you feel like it might be more appropriate for you to be involved in that process. We're happy to work with you, but just know that this is something that we're doing this survey intentionally to be able to demonstrate the effectiveness of this program overall in improving capacity in communities. So this is going out to nonprofit sites. This is not going out to campuses. The other thing I'll mention about that. And then the second thing, and this is more of an internal evaluation, is really want to ask the question to site supervisors and to members and to everybody involved in this program around the idea of member positions, benefits, term lengths. Are these things working for you? Currently, we have what we call full-time and then part-time, which is that 300-hour. There are other options that are available. There are 450-hour positions. There are 1,200-hour positions. If something like that would be of interest, as well as talking about benefits with the living allowance. Is that an appropriate size? Professional development funding, should that increase, decrease? Are there other benefits you'd like to see or other benefits I guess, other benefits you would like to see across the program. And then lastly, term lengths. Are they appropriate right now for full-time positions? And I think this mostly affects our full-time positions, but those are 11-month full-time. Should that be more of an 8-month position, a 12-month position? Is there another option that we're just not thinking of? And then for a part-time, we currently have 4, 8, and 12-month positions. You know, is there something in the middle there, 6 months, 10 months, something like that? I don't think that's as big of an issue for a part-time, but those are just the questions broadly we're going to ask. And I hope to do those in individual meetings, or phone calls, just to be able to understand your thoughts on these things a little bit more effectively. So let's see, Amanda asked, do you have an idea of when the capacity survey will be administered? I would say this winter is when we're looking at doing it. But Amanda, if you have a specific timeline that you are thinking of, we can certainly meet and talk about when that might work best for you. Definitely, willing to be flexible on these things and willing to work with you locally, so that way we know when is the best time to do it. We can take advantage of that. So happy to work with you on those things. All right, now I'm going to switch gears and switch it over to Ryan, and he's going to talk about the enrollment process and everything you can expect with that.
So for all of the members, this is kind of a list of all of the items that are kind of required for the enrollment process. So this is a lot of the different items that I'll be doing during the pre-service orientations or getting kind of beforehand, before any member is actually started. So that very first point there, all background checks are initiated and ran. So all of the members go through a sex offender check, a state check, and then as well as a heightened FBI check, which is a fingerprint check as well. So I can do those on site for everyone. But again, as Justin said, if there's any reason why necessarily I can't come out there or anything like that, I can send you cards and they can just go to their local police department to get fingerprinted as well. But I'm very happy to just come onto campus and actually fingerprint your members for you. So those are the 3 checks that are done for all members. For full-time members, there's a Iowa Western Community College paperwork just for payroll that we need submitted. In addition to that, position descriptions, I need those before a member can start as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about the position descriptions. There are now templates available, which is really just a collection of activities and words to use that you can kind of pull from, copy and paste as you're putting together those position descriptions. But I do need that before a member can start. ICAP program policies and member agreement completion. So this is just going over just the member agreement with the ICAP members that are coming in, just to make sure they understand everything. I have a quick presentation that I do with all members just to make sure that they're understanding exactly what that agreement has in there and that they can sign it and everything. Then I'll take them through an Encore timesheet tutorial. So Encore is the timesheet system that we use to monitor all of their hours, and that's where they input their hours. So walk them through that. It's a very simple system to use, but just making sure that they have access to that. We set up their initial login information, so there's not really much they have to do as far as registering wise. I put their information in, they have their login, they have their password, they can change it afterwards, but making sure they know how to actually input all of their hours. The next item is the very important one. So the MyAmericorps account setup, that needs to be done prior to their start date as well. This is what verifies their citizenship as well as their Social Security number and identity as well. So both of those 2 things have to be verified before I can click the enroll button in the MyAmericorps account system. So the moment that I send out that invitation, when I have the background paperwork and everything else, I'll send that invitation out to your members, and then they need to respond to that, because that's how they verify their identity and their citizenship in that process. So this is why the orientations are more now pre-service orientations, because there could be most likely what will happen is that when I go onto your campuses, they'll have the invitation, but it may take a day or so for AmeriCorps to actually process and verify those citizenship and Social Security identities for those students. So be more of a pre-service. They might be able to start the next day, just depending on kind of where they're at in the process, but that is something that has to be done, that MyAmericorps setup. And then just upcoming training events. So I let them know about all the upcoming events that are happening. So the Civic Action Academy. We usually have a spring network retreat. We have our awards, and then we have that Midwest conference that is happening as well. So those are all of the kind of professional development opportunities for them that I let them know kind of ahead of time in the enrollment process.
So the other thing I'll add, just to reinforce on here, is that the incentive of having us come to your campus to help get your members enroll into this program is even higher, because then we're actually there. We can set out that invitation. We can wait for that invitation to arrive.
Yes.
Nobody gets distracted by anything, by life or classes or anything like that, and then we can get that person into the program that day, or probably the next day is when they would officially start, or maybe 2 days after that. So if getting members into the program as quickly as possible is a priority for you, then have us come to your campus, and we will get that member into the program in just a few days.
And something else with the enrollment process. So as far as coming onto your campus, my calendar is pretty much open for that. So if you can get them all together into a group, that's fantastic. But if they can't necessarily come together in a group, I can definitely come to campus for a block of time and then meet with individuals kind of on a one-on-one basis as well. So don't feel like you have to try to get everyone together. I've definitely done drop-in, drop-out kind of enrollments with individuals or campuses that have multiple members that maybe can't come all at one time. So keep that in mind as you're setting up the orientations.
So Andy asked, how much time do you recommend setting aside for the campus training? I think if Ryan's going to come out there and kind of do them as folks arrive, then it helps to set up like maybe a 2 or 3 hour time frame, because each one you can kind of roll through those in about 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to do it all together, then it takes a little bit more time, and maybe like an hour or 90 minutes is more appropriate. I don't know, Ryan, if you want to add on to that.
Yeah, so if you have a big group that we're doing, I would say, like an hour and a half, because fingerprinting is probably the thing that takes the longest, especially if you have multiple members. So making sure they have multiple cards that I can complete so that we have that on file for them. But yeah, just like Justin said, probably like 2 to 3 hour block if you're doing drop-in, but if you have them all in a group, probably just like an hour and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then with the exit process, so there are exit paperwork that I will send to you, or that will be available on our Weebly ICAP site. So that has the indeterminate self-evaluation for the member. So that's just a member evaluation that they can complete. There's also that supervisor evaluation that we absolutely must have in the member file when they exit. My AmeriCorps will actually send out a exit form for them as well. So once they get closer to their exit date, that's automatically sent to them. And then there's midterm narratives. So there is a midterm evaluation that full-time members must have in their file before they can actually exit. And then the minimum time members, the part-time members, will have a midterm narrative as well that we would like to see in their file this coming year. There's also a midterm supervisor evaluation for those full-time members. So just like the end-of-term evaluations, but we'll have some midterms ones for the supervisor. And then there's the members training certification form. And that just certifies that all those trainings that are required of members are completed. And that's signed by you and the member, just to ensure that they've completed those trainings.
Before we talk about site visits, I just want to show everyone the website real quick. So if you're not familiar, we do have a program website, and hopefully you can see this. I'll put it in the chat box as well. It is just iowcollegeamericorps.weebly.com, and all this paperwork Ryan is talking about is already on here. So all the part-time member paperwork, full-time member, other member forms, so the exit forms, everything like that. If you want to look at position description stuff, under supervisors, there's position descriptions, and then supervisor trainings will, that's where today's recording will be. So you can look at that. Going to get back to this one.
Awesome. So I'll also be doing some site visits kind of throughout the year. So I try to focus on 3 different areas when I'm doing site visits. So the first one, just building connections with members, with supervisors and service sites. So just sitting down with the AmeriCorps members, asking them a little bit about their service so far, being able to sit down with you all, the site supervisors, just to see how everything is going on your side. And then I really would like to go to some of the service sites. So if your members are serving at different nonprofit organizations, being able to talk with those service sites, maybe have like a brief orientation and just talk with whoever their supervisor is there, just to learn a little bit more about how the program is being utilized at their service site. So that or not the capacity survey, but the orientation kind of aspect of that for those service sites that we want to kind of make sure that they're oriented to the program. That could happen during these site visits, but that's something that I'm really interested in doing this coming year, is that if you have some nonprofits that your members are going to, being able to sit down with them and just asking them about their AmeriCorps members and how they're doing as well. The second point there is just grant monitoring and compliance. So just making sure the activities and duties are in compliance. If there's any kind of member enrollment or exit or anything kind of in between that is missing from the member or needs to be corrected or anything like that, that will be an opportunity for me to just go onto site and meet directly with the member to actually take care of. And then at the last one is just recognition. So getting pictures, handing out swag. So I have some funding to actually give out some cool items to your members, and then recording any kind of stories or narratives from kind of a group of members that you have there, just to make sure that we're telling the story of what your AmeriCorps members are doing on your campuses. So those are really the three focus areas that I do whenever I do a site visit, and I'll set those up with you all as the semester kind of kicks off and starts to begin. So some additional information, so site visits and monthly communication. So for full-time members, we'll primarily go over kind of more personal and professional development with them. So once we have a VISTA leader, we'll have a point person for them. So if they have any questions like personal, professional, their site environment, any kind of work, day-to-day kind of things that they want to talk about, that's who they'll daily communicate with or reach out to. In the meantime, members can definitely reach out to me, full-time members, if they have any kind of questions about anything kind of in that area. And then other kind of things, the weekly emails that we send out. So right now that's being handled by both myself and then our other program coordinator in the office, Monique. So we'll be sending out just some opportunities for them, professional development opportunities, CNCS news, any regional events that may be happening or anything like that. And then we'll also be doing some one-on-one phone calls with all the full-time members as well. So this is just in the interim until we have our full-time VISTA leader who kind of will oversee kind of all of the full-time AmeriCorps members and their general member experience. And then here are the training topics. So these are the required trainings. So in that training certification form that they will be signing off that they actually completed. So the first two there, you won't really need to worry about. So the encore training for timesheets, that will be handled during the orientation. So that won't always be checked off the list. And then using your Ed Award, that will happen towards the end of their service. And I normally just send members either a PowerPoint of how to actually use their Ed Award. But if we do any type of closeout event, which I would like to do this coming year, so if you just want to make sure at the end of your member's service term that they have all their paperwork and everything that they need, timesheets, need to be correct or anything like that, I can come onto your campus and kind of do like a reverse orientation. So just kind of a closeout event where I can kind of go over the Ed Award with them, collect any kind of final paperwork that I would need so we can just completely close out your program. So when I go onto your campus and do orientations, I will also suggest that all the member start dates are the same and then end dates are the same. And that just makes it easier for you just to collect all the paperwork that you would need to make sure that everything is kind of completed and the member can successfully exit the program. They don't need to be all the same, but it definitely helps out site supervisor-wise to make sure you have all that paperwork that we need. There's some other required training, so capacity building and volunteer management training, communication training, civic engagement, life after AmeriCorps, and then disaster preparedness if they're serving more than 4 months. All of these different categories can be satisfied by going to the Civic Action Academy, so that's why that part of it is a requirement. So we'll have all these different training categories actually covered. There may be some opportunities for that also at the spring retreat, at the awards, even at the Midwest conference that's happening as well. But we also have PowerPoints available on our website as well. So if they can't make any of those or anything like that, they can always go onto our website, and we have some PowerPoints that they can go through that count for 1 hour of service that they can actually go through and kind of complete these trainings as needed. And here's just another recap of just all the trainings that are coming up. So the Civic Action Academy at Drake University in February, our spring Campus Compact retreat that is actually happening as well. So that location and date is going to be determined. In May, we usually have our Engage Campus Awards. So we always concurrently do some kind of AmeriCorps training or get together during that or before the actual award ceremony actually happens. So be on the lookout for that. And then our Midwest Conference, that's going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So there will be an entire AmeriCorps kind of track available for AmeriCorps members really across our region together. So those are all the different kind of training opportunities that will be available to your members to take advantage of. We definitely encourage your members to take advantage of that. We have the funding to actually cover a lot of the costs and travel costs for that. So definitely make sure that you're kind of pointing them to these different opportunities that are here. And then any on-campus training. So if you ever just want me to just come on campus and just do a communications training or anything like that, a civic engagement training, I can most certainly do that just individually with you as well.
Yep. Amanda asked if members can account the training hours for Iowa Civic Action Academy. So yeah, certainly if you're going to the Civic Action Academy, any of those hours would count towards their training for the program. So yep. And one thing we did include in for members or for folks who are not from the Des Moines area and you're traveling, that travel time can count towards their term of service as well. So we opened that door up too, because we didn't have that. It was allowable last year. We just didn't clarify that it was in the agreement or any instructions. So
they just can't go over 12 hours in a day.
Yep.
And once we talk about timekeeping tomorrow during the training, it has all those kind of limits to time.
These are some of the program deadlines. Position descriptions, again, we'd like those 5 business days prior to the position start, just so we can make sure that everything is good and golden with those. We have all the performance measure report deadlines in there. Civic Action Plan report, again, I said that was listed in June, but we're going to have more of a time period for that one. So if you want to amend your agreement with us, we're more than happy to do that. Otherwise, we're not going to enforce that deadline. The midterm evaluations for those full-time members, again, that's due in February. And then you see the other ones in there, monthly full-time member narrative, as well as financial claims. So next trainings that we have, so right after this one, we're going to have one on position descriptions that Ryan is going to lead. And then shortly after that, on performance measures that I will Ryan and I will kind of tag team that one. Tomorrow we have one on timekeeping, and then we moved our financial one from tomorrow to Monday because tomorrow's my birthday, and I decided to take the day off. So happy birthday to me. All of these trainings are recorded. All of them will be available on the Supervisor website, and we will send out links to everybody after we get everything online. You can also find the slides for these trainings on there right now. All right, thanks everybody. We're going to stop recording this one, and since it is almost 2 o'clock, we're going to start our next training shortly after this one. So thanks for watching at home if you're watching at home.